What's up, my beautiful marketing people? I want to welcome Amisha Gandhi to the show. She is joining us from Tipalti. She is the SVP of Marketing over there. Amisha, how you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you?
I am doing great. We had a great chat before we hit record, and I'm excited to get into this episode. Uh, talk all things marketing, really how we can look at, you know, growth and being more connected to our customer and really looking at their journey. But before we do that, I want to pass the mic to you, let you kind of set the table for the listener, talk us through your journey in marketing. How did you get to Tipalti? What's Tipalti do? Like, walk me through. I know you got a cool story about kind of like having a sign like, "Hey, I got to take this job." Like, walk me through that journey so far, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. I'm excited to be here and talk to you. And I think, everyone's career and journeys are different, right? And I think mine is probably a little bit more different because I didn't start in marketing. I didn't study marketing. I'm admittedly a med school dropout. I went and I left my well paying job in research to go work in marketing. And that really, for me, started off leaving my well paying job and going to a temp agency because nobody would hire me. And I ended up at a startup called City Search. And so they did online city guides, and they started in one city in North Carolina, and I joined them then. And I really enjoyed that ride, and I was there for a couple of years, and I did all different things in marketing. But to work in marketing, you had to do some sales, so that was a really good websites. It was just they constructed websites in different cities and created communities. So that's why I always believe in community and content, just probably from working in that company. But took the ride. The company went public. It was really great. I did every job I think in marketing possible, from operations to sales support to content to writing ads and things. Then I went to advertising agencies and ended up in public relations. And then I ended up at SAP for 11 years. And I started in communications in their global communications group, ended up running part of mobile product marketing. And then, my claim to fame is that I got fired from SAP because they got rid of their mobile group. And I said, well, I want to do influencer marketing. I want to do it here at SAP. And so I actually launched influencer marketing on the B2B side probably about 7 years ago, when I don't think anybody was doing it except IBM for social. And so I launched influencer marketing there. And like I said, that's my claim to fame, as most people know me, and did that on the B2B side, which is very different than B2C. And that allowed me to really deconstruct at a large place like an SAP the customer journey or customer experience, as now we're all calling it the new buzzword. And that really catapulted me looking at across all of marketing, all the jobs I've done, all the stuff that was happening at SAP, and how do we kind of keep it connected, and really made me think of marketing as it's a puzzle, and we're putting together the right puzzle, right, to get the right business growth for the companies that we're at. And this opportunity at Tipalti came up, in their high growth SaaS fintech company, in the payables global automation space. And so that seemed very interesting, exciting. And we were talking before this, as I was thinking about my career change, and, just being able to look at marketing as a puzzle, and this would be an opportunity to do so and help really grow and innovate with a company. Was, my husband, we do payouts, and so he's a supplier. And I was thinking about it, and he actually got paid by Tipalti, by one of our ad tech platforms at Tipalti. And so for me, that was a sign, like, okay, this is real. They're paying everyone, so I want to join in. So that's a little bit about my story and how I ended up, in a leadership position at Tipalti.
I love it. I love those. I love hearing the journey. I love those little, moments that are so they're cool, for lack of a better word, right? Like, it's just so cool, and you're like, oh, you saw it. Oh, tangibly saw the service go through. Okay, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of something new, something that's you know pushing innovation and get a fresh start. So that's amazing. Um, Now, when you're at Tipalti, right, and this is something we talked a little bit about off air, but I want to dive into, really, for marketers and people who are sitting in a marketing position, a growth position. Honestly, it really affects customer service, sales, anyone who's customer facing when it comes to either creating material or doing face to face with customers. Thinking about, and I want to get your opinion on, like, how we can grow and really like widen our scope, right? Take the blinders off, because I think it's so easy to get caught up in, like, Oh, I'm just creating a piece of content. Oh, I'm just doing a follow up. Oh, I'm just doing that. Talk to me about the importance of seeing the bigger picture, and also like if there's any steps or things that you've done maybe that help you do that. Like, okay, I take remove myself or what may that be. But I'd love to hear how you do that.
So when you think about it, right, in marketing, this is where like, oh, we have a campaign and we're going to change the world, and it's going to be, we have to take a step back. We look at our business goals. We know we have to get the leads. We have to do all these things, right? And then you look at the business as a whole. And I think everyone is now talking about this whole customer experience piece, right? But they talk about it from marketing. They talk about it from sales, and then they talk about it from your customer service or customer success, right? And then you talk about it in product, right? But there is this connectedness of someone that's an actual customer, either B2B or B2C, right? Especially on the B2B side. What is my experience from the time I'm prospect to the time I become a customer to the time hopefully they become an advocate, right, for your business? What that's all happening, but it's happening within the teams, and maybe even in marketing within the teams, right? So you're right. When somebody's taking a look, when you start thinking about your plan, maybe I'll take it from the marketing point of view just to start with, is map it out. What are you doing? Okay, this is great, Q1. Where does it fit in the customer journey? We know it's not linear, right? But what part of it is it? And you start mapping it out, and then you might say like, hey, this campaign isn't truly connected or integrated, right? So how do we actually integrate and connect that together, right? It needs to be done in a certain way, right? If we really want to be connected, or somebody's going to get an email that leads them to some, white paper, ebook, podcast, or whatever it is that you're offering is your offer, right? And they're interested in it. They go there. Okay, that seems right. But then what's the next step? And how does that help them, educate them, inform them, delight them, whatever it is that you're doing, and then get somewhere else? And then when it goes over to sales, right? Is it the right outreach sequence? Is it following suit? Right. So you want to create that, but you also have to plan for it.
No, you're so right. Right. This is one of those things that it doesn't matter if you're sales, customer service, if you're marketing, but understanding how connected it is. I also think from a business leadership standpoint, like you said, planning it out, right? And mapping what we think is our customer journey, really taking a look at, hey, what is the experience that I think the customer's going to have? But then, two, following up with the customer and saying, okay, what did you actually have? And then using data to come in and being like, oh, this was actually where they dropped off. They might have self reported that they did this, but the data shows us this. Now that experience comes into play where we're able to go, okay, I'm going to make three educated guesses about, the customer experience and
Right.
how I can do the adjustments. I think the same thing happens too, and this is just kind of coming to me now on the internal side, right? Is like somebody comes in as a new staff member on anything, new sales, new marketing, new customer
Right.
service, ops, and what's their journey like? That first week, second week, when do they go from employee to team member to advocate out helping recruit for the business? It's the same thing. If we look at this,
Right.
the same thing from the staff side of things over to that customer side, right? How do we take you from customer to client to really advocate, right? And brand defender as well. Um,
It's so interesting you say that, right? Because I think in marketing or in comms or whatever piece you're in, right? And if you're in product marketing, you're going to get to know the product inside out. That doesn't mean everyone in demand like may not know it at that level, right? That somebody in product marketing might know, but as just an employee coming in, are you training so they understand who you're reaching out to? Why do you exist? Why is it important to that customer, right? And then what's the value prop that you have, and what's the right story that you're telling externally, but then internally, right? How is that all playing together? So when you're talking to customers, here's our storyline, right? If you want to talk about product, here's how you take that story down, it layers down, right? So how do you do that so that eventually all some of your employees become your SMEs, right? As well.
yeah, I say this too. I say this with my team. We're an agency, but I tell everyone, I say, look, I don't, I'm never going to make any of you hold you to a sales figure, but everyone is on the sales team, everyone's on the retention team, everyone's on the marketing team. If we know the mission and where we're trying to go, And if you don't, that's my fault. If you just think, hey, I'm making a piece of content for it, or we're we're starting a podcast, but we're not running any ads. What's the point? Okay, let me walk you through why we have the podcast. Let me
Right.
show you actually what this does for us. Okay, great. And now there's more understanding. And to your point, it's like people, the internal team can start to become advocates and they don't even know because it'll happen so organically. What's the first question you ask somebody when you meet them at a networking event or out at, hey, so what do you do? Oh,
Yeah. What do you do? Oh, where are you? What? Oh,
yeah.
what is that? I'm not familiar. Whatever it is, right? Yeah, that's true.
It,
And that's your elevator pitch, right? And so, is there an elevator pitch for 15 seconds, right, or 10 seconds, and then 30 seconds, or whatever it is, and make it relatable, right? So you have that little bit in your back pocket. But for me as a marketer, and I do encourage everyone, is like, okay, everyone's into data and this. There's also an art and science, but if you really know your topic well, so I always think about, when I joined SAP, I did their sales training. I think I was one of the very few people in marketing that said, I'm going to, and I went through the entire sales training, and I didn't know anything about ERPs when I joined SAP, and so I went into that, and I think it made me a better, it definitely made me a better marketer, and I understood. And then talk to your customers, spend time with them, and get to know what their whole world looks like, not just their world with your product, right? Because we don't build things that way anymore, right? So
I
those are
love
two
that.
things you can do.
I love that. I like one doing the sales training, and it speaks to something else that maybe listener, you're there and you're like, well, I'm in a small company, we don't have sales training. Okay, go talk to the sales team. See what are they selling. Sit in on a sales call. Ask for a recording of the sales call. See what are the go take the person who's closing the most business and see what are the three things they're talking about on their sales call. Okay, are you fulfilling that? And is the product messaging saying those so that we're aligned with sales? Okay, cool. Then go talk to the head of the CSR with the most one and dones and go say,
Right.
okay, how are they handling complaints? How are they handling those? Because that's going to, oh, we missed that in our communication. There was a fault, the expectation didn't line up with reality.
Yeah, see it out in the wild. See what
hmm
it does in the wild, because maybe some things you thought aren't, this is resonating more than this. And that's always good to see, right?
Yeah, it's so crucial. We had somebody on the show. They did storage containers, right? And you have an app, and you can see your storage container. And they were like, oh, they thought the app was so revolutionary, and it helped for the younger generation. But then they actually talked to the older generation that was using their product, and the older generation just said, oh, we just like that you come pick it up because we can't lift the boxes. And it's like, oh, we never would have
Okay.
known that unless we actually like asked y'all, why do you like this? Right. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're a delivery service. Like that's the value prop here. But
Yeah.
we can make our best guesses in the world, but without getting that, that firsthand knowledge from the customer service team, the sales team, other executives, customer, like
It
it's
helps you with the connectedness of it all, because then you can sort of see, like, okay, now this is what is resonating. This is how it should be. Or maybe this is how it shouldn't be, right? Like you're talking about in that last example. I think that's important.
so it's so important. And I want to move this now to community, right? And talk about really the power of this and what it can do. So I'm interested on like community building is I think it's right there with customer experience and buzzwords of like the last year. Everyone's like community building. And then I always try to like press for like, okay, how do we measure community? How do we define it? What is that? Is that, you know, is there some minimum amount? If you have what's the best way to facilitate it? Like, I just love to kind of hear how do you approach, or maybe approach like community building, community maintenance. I would also say is another part of it, or maintaining it and maintaining that growth. Um, but if we look at like Tipalti for instance, is there something y'all are doing around community building that you're like, okay, this has been really successful?
Yeah, I think past year we launched a customer community, right? And so we really wanted to start there, before we jump into other types of communities, right? Why do we exist? What do we do, with our customers? And so we launched it, and we, kind of launched it with our customers. We said, we're going to do this. We have a platform. We're thinking this would be of value to you. Do you find value in this? Where would you find value? Why would you want to come? What do you think you, and we start asking those questions, then we construct it around that, right? Whereas I think whether it's an external or a customer community, what have you, I think people look at it and say, oh, wow, okay, how many leads are we going to get? Oh, how can we get people to buy more stuff? And if you approach it that way, you're not going to really create a community. You're just creating another channel to market, and no one's going to want to be a really part of that, right? In order to, you want to make an advocate and you want them to feel, right? Every customer should be part of your community. If you start having that kind of mental shift and mindset, if you will, right? That speaks to growth mindset and community mindset, if you want to talk about it, right? How do you get to that community mindset? It's by asking people that you want to think you want in your community what they're looking for, what they might be missing. Is it a place to create career advice or mentor mentee, or is it a place to get educated more or to become more modern? What is their pain point that they feel they could get out of a community? And then you start building it that way. And it doesn't have to be thousands of people, right? It could be a small, powerful community where you're really providing a lot of value, like in this case with our customers, right? We have a few hundred now in the community, but it's a build. And then it has to evolve as the community is interacting. They should be dictating what it's about versus the people running it. We're here to facilitate. So think of yourself as facilitators and have a community mindset.
I love that. The being the facilitator. Hey, we're just here to build the stadium, but y'all got to go inside and play basketball and do the game and talk and thinking about it in that way, giving people a safe place, a vetted place where they can come through and share experiences is so important. Um, yeah, I love this, Amisha. Now, before I let you go, where can people find out about more about Tipalti and connect with you online?
Come see me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, but LinkedIn is always the best place for business, right? Especially B2B. And then I'm also on Instagram at Amisha Cooks because I like to cook and it's all about food. So if you want to know about food, you can connect with me there. If you want to talk about marketing and business and connectedness, find me on LinkedIn. And then with Tipalti, we're at tipalti.com.
Amazing. I'm going to put links to all those. I'm also going to bold the Cooks account because I need to follow more cooking accounts. I'm a novice, but I'm trying to get into it. So I love it, and I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, that's it for this episode. As always, I'm your host, Jordan Shelton, and I'll catch you next.